Hi everyone. So I got inspired to do weekly readings of my book Pieces, the 52 short stories about being human. But I'm not gonna read the whole chapters. I'm just gonna read a little bit and then talk about what was happening in my life, what led me to write it, and or my perhaps new understandings, new learnings from it. Just kind of expand on what the book is already providing, because you can read it for yourself. You don't need me to read it to you, but I think it's good. Sometimes I'm always curious, like when I'm reading books like this, like what was going on for the author, like where they're coming from. So also I'm of course very welcome to questions, which I'll be always happy to answer the following week, or react to any discussions that might ensue. So let's start, shall we? Let's just jump into it so we don't make it too long. So the book is called Pieces. Sometimes we have to fall to pieces to build ourselves anew. The author is moi, Kristina, Magdalena Matej. And as I said, it's 52 short stories. So for a year there will be one a week. That's the plan. So the first kind of group of chapters, it's called Bringing Light to the Darkness, and they a little bit heavier. They're from the beginning of when I started to write, when part of the writing process was actually catharsis. It was to let go of those heavy dark feelings I was experiencing. So the first one, it's grief. Let's dive right in there. So I just will read the first page, and then I'll lead into what is this all about. The pain is unbelievable. I've experienced plenty of pain in the past, but none of that really compares to what I've been feeling since he's been gone. The pain starts in the middle of my chest. It feels like a pressure that is being applied simultaneously from the inside and the outside of my sternum. It is searing hot and freezing cold, a black hole pulsing from within my core, expanding in waves all over my body. There is pain now in every muscle, every bone, every cell. I've never been tasered, but I imagine this is what it feels like. I feel like screaming, but I know that no sound would pass my lips if I tried. This silent scream is so loud, it fills my mind like an explosion, wiping out any thought, logic, or comprehension. I'm silent, dark, and empty. I catch a glimpse of his face from the photograph I keep in my purse for the purpose of self-torture, also known as nostalgia. It all comes flooding back. I can smell him as if he stood next to me right now. I can feel his arms around me, his breath on my face, the warmth of his body offering the solace and safety I miss so badly. I cannot look away from the photo now, desperately trying to memorize every aspect of his beautiful face, every little imperfection, his smile, the shape of his eyes, their deep chocolate color. I never want to forget. I will never see him again. I will never get another picture of him. And once those I have fade, get mislaid or disappear, I will have nothing left of him but memories. And so I memorize every aspect of his beautiful face again, taking in every detail, just as I have done so many times before. So, actually makes me feel a little emotional. This chapter is called Grief. It's basically a window into my experience of grief after my husband died. We were separated at a time when I found out he had cancer, but I still loved him. Just because I didn't live with him doesn't mean my feelings disappeared. And I looked after him from the moment I found out to the moment he died. I spent almost every day with him, and I was with him when he actually passed away. When he breathed his last breath, I was holding his hand and I was patting his face, and I kept telling him how much I loved him and that everything's gonna be okay. But the grief that followed was totally unexpected. Like, I thought, I've experienced death before. I had, family members, friends who had died, and I cried, and then I moved on, and I thought that's exactly what's gonna happen here. With my philosophy of life and death and my understanding of it, I thought it's gonna be fine, it's gonna be all right. Like, I will cry a little bit, I'll be a little sad, and it might hurt a bit, and then I'll move on. I was thinking weeks rather than months. Oh my goodness, how wrong was I? And what actually happened was the pain was incredible. Like, as I described, as bone crushing. It's like a black hole that sucks everything in, and it's just incredibly painful. It's physical pain as well as emotional, and what I realized is that it's not something that's constant. Like, it was kind of coming and going. So initially it was like the first few weeks it was just constant pain, but then you start working, you start functioning, and then it would just come in bouts. Maybe when I smelled the perfume he used on someone else on a tube or something, I just start crying automatically. Before I knew what was happening, I was already crying. It's the crying that brought my attention to the fact that I must have smelled that scent, and that just triggered everything. The pain of just knowing he's not in the world, the version of him, his physical presence, it will never again be seen, touched, smelled. And that realization hit me much harder than I expected, and it kept coming back. It still is. It's been almost 4 years now, and it's going to be 4 years in a month, and it still hurts. No, it doesn't happen as often, or it doesn't last as long, but it's still just as intense. The pain is just incredible, and the pain doesn't get any easier or better. But while I am in between those moments, I'm able to talk about him without getting, all teary-eyed or too emotional. I'm able to talk about him with a smile on my face, because he was an amazing man. Despite our differences, he was a beautiful human being. And I think what I just wanted to share in that story, which is basically a window into how I've experienced grief. I wanted to share what it feels like on all levels. So it's that time when I wrote it, I actually was experiencing grief at the time. I really wrote it as I was feeling it, and I think it was about maybe 20 minutes, half an hour at a time. It was probably about a year after his passing, and as you read it, you'll understand how intense that felt. And what I've shared was my physical experience of it, my emotional experience of it, what kind of feelings came in, because there's a mixture. It's not just sadness, there's anger, there's frustration, there is pain, there's also kind of love and joy. It's kind of this bittersweet combination that's hard to get your mind or your heart around. And I also share the thoughts that were going through my head, and the kind of general sensations. And why I've shared it is because when I was experiencing this, I felt incredibly alone in that experience. I felt, yes, I know people lost their loved ones, I know people grieve, but no one feels what I feel, no one thinks what I think, like even some of those thoughts were quite alarming, especially the angry ones. So I felt like, well, how can I tell people I'm angry with someone who is dead? Like, it just, at the time, it felt completely unacceptable. Thanks to therapy and self-growth, I've moved on from that kind of way of thinking, and I think I'm completely shameless now. So I do believe there's no shame in anything. It's all human experience, and actually the more we share those kind of experiences with others, the more we learn to understand each other as well as ourselves. And the more we can then grow and to let go of the negative sides of those experiences. So yeah, this is a chapter on grief. And next week, I believe it's gonna be. Let's make it a surprise. Actually, if you have the book, you will know what the next week chapter is. If you don't have the book, why not? Go and get it. You can get it on Amazon, by the way, in both Kindle and printed version. And the money that I get out of it, it's not that much, but it all goes towards my little booba that's waiting to be born, and it's been massive inspiration for the book to be actually published. So take care, everyone, and see you next week.